Hello, Future Tom here. I'm just editing the video with Stuart, and I'm afraid again we've had issues with audio and video quality. I've actually changed platform for future interviews. I'm hoping that will solve the problem. Really not clear what causes it. Did all the usual checks. He was well set up. Things worked fine, and then you get the video through, and we've got some sync issues and some audio quality issues as well. So my apologies. I still think it's a really interesting interview and very watchable, very listenable, but yeah, not ideal. My apologies to Stuart, by the way, not his fault. Hello and welcome to another episode of DIY EV Chat. My name is Tom Cheesewright. I've made one electric vehicle, which still needs a lot of upgrades, and I'm started on my second nonetheless. But there's a whole pantheon of brilliant people out there who've built their own electric vehicles, one or many, done it in lots of different ways, and people seem to be curious about it, so I thought I'd interview some of them. And my guest on this episode is Stuart Dean, a man who's made, well, some very interesting cars of a type, or vehicles of a type which are very much in demand at the moment. Welcome to DIY EV Chat, Stuart.
Thank you, Tom. It's good to be here.
So let's start. Actually, I'm going to start with just tell us about what you've got in your fleet of vehicles at the moment, because I think they are the number of people I know who are trying to build something a bit like what you've got. Tell us about those to start with.
Okay. Currently, the van that I use on a day-to-day basis, I use for work, is Transporter T5. I converted it to electric, I think it was about 3-4 years ago now, and I've been using it on a daily basis for work. I've used a Siemens FPV motor, and in the end I used a Scott Drive inverter, Nissan Leaf batteries. That's the work van. The other vehicle that I'm just really starting working on now is an RT5. It's Caravelle. I'm hoping to make that four-wheel drive and long range. So that's the latest project that I'm just sort of working on now, collecting parts, and hopefully doing more on videos and stuff soon.
Very cool. Now, I'm getting some slight audio issues. I'm going to hope that it's sounding all right on the recording. It probably will be because it records it locally. But let's crack on. So you say you use that for work. What is work? Where do you sort of develop the skills to do something like this?
Well, at the moment, work for me on a day-to-day basis is repairing small electric vehicles, so mobility scooters. But my sort of my career path, I started off as a machinist when I was 16. I worked there for a couple of years, and I spent about 20 years in prosthetics, making artificial limbs. I don't know what.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but,
not for Hanger by any chance.
No. I worked for Watts, and I worked for Blatchford's in the end, up at Headley Court. So, yes, I did that for a couple of years. That was good.
I only asked because my dad worked for Hanger.
I know some people who work for Hangers as well. It's a good industry. It gives you a lot of exposure to different materials and techniques. So I'm almost thinking in the future of maybe making battery boxes out of composite rather than metal. Could be a good way of doing it. So it's another way of doing it. So that's a possibility.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you had a bunch of mechanical skills then, and sort of engineering experience.
Yes. And alongside that, I also had a workshop at home when I was about 16. Mum and Dad bought me a lathe, so yeah, they've always encouraged me making things, learning to weld, and all of these things was sort of stuff I did really from school age. So yeah, I can sort of weld now. I've got enough practice.
It's one of those lifelong projects, isn't it? Learning to do it well.
It is. It's not something that comes easy at all, and it's the only way you can get better at that is practice. There was a lovely engineering company I went to.
I need a lot more practice.
Well, there was a great engineering company I went to, and they let me take the metal out of their bin. I welded it all together and then threw it back in their bin, and then took some more metal out. And I got a lot of practice for very cheap. Really, it just cost me a box of welding rods because that was arc welding. But yeah, that's that. Make friends. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm finding that this is one of my favorite things about this community is I keep making friends with useful people, and who keep sort of pointing me in new directions as well in terms of equipment and kit, and people who fill in the blanks in your own skills are very useful as well.
Yeah,
There are bits that I'm I wouldn't say good at yet, but I'm useful at, and there are bits that I'm not, and it's good finding people who fill in those blanks.
absolutely.
So when did your sort of interest in electric vehicles come about? What sparked that, if you'll forgive the
Yeah,
pun?
well, I started years ago. I was very interested in using biodiesel and stuff to run the van and try and save some money and the rest of it. But it was a bit of a faff. It was horrible, dangerous chemicals. But then, as soon as I realised that electric van in particular, for my particular application, was a thing, you could possibly do that. I got quite excited by that because there's nothing like being able to charge it at home, being able to charge it potentially off solar. Um, it's an absolutely fascinating subject, and you can actually do a lot of it yourself, if not all of it, if you've got the skills, of course. If you're very electronically minded, you could go a very long way with all of this, as people have done, like Marty Rimac.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. If you've got friends who are,
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah.
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely. He's kind of the ultimate DIY EVer, really, isn't he? Went from making his own BMW in his garage to probably the world leaders in terms of automotive EV technology. It's quite an impressive journey, and he's still
Yes.
upsettingly young.
Yeah, isn't it? It makes you feel like an underachiever. It's like Elon Musk. He's done way too much, hasn't he, really? Um, yeah, I mean, the OEMs are going to him to actually find out how to build electric vehicles, and he's behind a lot of the advances that the OEMs have had to get them as
Mm,
far along as they are. And 10 years ago or so, he
yeah.
was building DIY vehicles. So yeah, this needs to be encouraged
Well,
more.
if you're listening, Mate, I would love a drive in a Navero.
Yeah, I would too. I would too. I'm up for that.
so so So, what were your first steps? So, the first car you converted was a van you were using, sort of, a daily driver. That was a diesel. Was it a diesel
It was
T5?
a diesel T5. It came to me as a diesel T5. It was broken when I bought it. I actually bought it as a sort of salvage.
Okay.
It was not damaged, but the engine was kaput quite badly. Um, I opened the bonnet and looked at the rocker cover, and basically all of everything was broken. The cams were bent, so he'd had a bad time, a very bad time. So I whipped that out, and within the space of a couple of weeks, I actually had the Siemens motor bolted onto the gearbox and hanging on a frame. That was, for me at least, that was sort of the easy bit. It was everything else that took forever. Um, I tried to go down the
Yeah.
DIY inverter route, and it was early days, and they were Janus boards, and it wasn't his fault or their fault or Damon Guire or any of those people's fault. I wasn't up to the job, quite frankly. That wasn't me. So in the end, I put that to one side and went for a built inverter, and that definitely was the right way to go for me, at least.
And you say it was a Scott drive?
Yes, I've got a Scott drive in there. It's a 100 kilowatt Scott drive. The funny thing about electric vehicles is you think, oh, I'm going to need loads of power because you're worried it's not going to be that good. 100 kilowatts in that van is absolutely crazy. You don't need that sort of power. But the torque it's got. Well, coming back from the MOT, which is a terrifying experience, because you've not driven this thing before, you don't know what it's going to do. And on the way
Yeah.
back, I was accelerating out a slip road, and at 40 miles an hour, I span the wheels. So it's like properly, like lit them up. So, oh, bloody hell. So I talked to the
Well,
guys at Scott Drive, and they calmed it down for me, and it's a lot more usable now. Yeah, but yeah, performance wasn't really the issue.
I've just dropped 120 kilowatts worth of motors off at my workshop to put in a BMW Z3, which so I imagine that's going to be quite lively.
It's going to be exceptionally crazy. Yeah, absolutely, it's going to be a weapon. Yeah, that'll be ballistic. That'll be absolutely ballistic.
I hope so. I mean, again, I might have to detune it myself just to make it a bit more
I think
sensible.
having a
Certainly,
road
that's meant to be in my winter car as well.
you don't want to do, sort of like go through the scenery backwards. It's not as much fun as it sounds. I've been there. I've done that. Did a bit of that. That was another.
And where did you source the motor from?
That actually came from EVTV back in the day. Uh,
Oh,
so
okay.
I think it did quite a big round trip because I think it probably came from here and then went there and then came back again. But so yeah, that wasn't necessarily the cheapest way of getting that motor, but it was brand new, still in it'd never been fitted to anything. It was straight out of the packet. So I thought that was a good way to go, get a new one.
Wow.
Yeah, um, it was expensive, but I've bought motors since. The bigger Siemens motor out of a bus. It's an 800-volt motor, so we have to get it rewound to 400 volts probably. But that thing is monstrous. It's had a life. It could do probably new bearings going in it, but it was £1,000 from Germany, sort of out of a scrapper. So you can get them cheaper. There are ways of getting hold of them.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
And then batteries, you went down the Leaf route.
I did because it was all I could get hold of at the time. You sort of like, I've got this thing that nearly goes, and I need a battery. I looked at Teslas and 18 grand for a battery pack sort of killed me a little bit. It's like, no, I can't spend that sort of money. Although that's really the answer. So yeah, I went to Trent, our local scrapyard, and they had a Nissan Leaf. So I grabbed the battery from that and fitted it and got it running. And once I had it running, I realised it wasn't going to give me the mileage. That gave me 50 miles of range, but that wasn't enough. So I ended up putting a second Nissan Leaf battery from Trent's again. They had another one, and putting that in the back of the van. So and now it does about 100 miles range without any particular fears. I've done 107 miles in one day in it, on one charge.
And what about for charging? You just charging at
Yes,
home, or do you have it set up
yes.
for out and about as well?
I've only got a 7 kilowatt charger in the van. I found that I can charge at pod points, so Tesco's is quite handy for charging. Although at the moment they seem to be oversubscribed. Every time I go to a pod point or at a Tesco's, there's cars everywhere queuing up to use it. So yeah, that's. I used it once when I went on my longer journey of the 107 miles because I was a little bit worried about getting back, and I gave it a sort of quick blip for half an hour. It didn't do a great deal, but it made me feel a lot better, and I came back again. So yeah, it's all good. So it does 100 miles quite easily.
Yeah, I think range anxiety is more of a thing with DIY EVs than off the shelf ones. Perhaps
You don't know how good your meters are, do you? It's like, is this meter accurate? Is it really bad?
Or in my case, at the moment, I don't have one.
Yeah, that could be an issue. That could cause a certain amount of anxiety. Yeah, I've got a very cheap meter in the current van, and it was like less than 50 quid, I think it was, and it's really good. It counts the power in and out. I wouldn't say it was, um, you wouldn't bet your life on it, but certainly the voltage side of it is quite, accurate. And with the Nissan Leaf cells, the voltage slope seems to be quite sort of. Well, it's not like go along and then fall off the cliff. It sort of does have quite a nice sag to the voltage.
Right.
So,
yeah, unlike the BMW cells, which sort of drop off incredibly sharply, have a long plateau,
yes,
and then just die.
Yes, that could be an issue, couldn't it? You're ploughing down the motorway.
I've only been stranded once. Yeah, fortunately, I ran out of battery just around the corner from the house, but I've only done it once so
Uh,
far. I've got a fairly good handle on where I can get to and where I
I
cannot.
did that once and came home on a flatbed, and the lorry driver thought it was hilarious. Why did you bother? You know, all of that sort of stuff. It was, yeah, yeah. I had to yeah. It was. I wish that hadn't ever happened. But there we go. It did. So, I mean,
And tell me about the second project. Tell me about the
the
Caravelle.
Caravelle. Well, yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be a four-wheel drive camper van with long range. So I want fast charging, CCS, and I'm looking at batteries at the moment. I'm looking at every option really, from getting cells direct from China and building my own, and
Wow.
well, it's an option because it's no more difficult really than putting the leaf cells in the current van. In actual fact, in many ways, it's easier if you need to parallel them. It's much more straightforward.
Mm,
Those 30 kilowatt leaf batteries are a bit of a pain because they're sort of Siamese to the actual cells, and paralleling them, no, it
right.
doesn't really work. So I end up with two separate battery packs, which isn't the right way to do it at all, really. But it works. It's fine.
Mm. So that's sort of work in progress, and so that's in the garage, that's in the workshop now. Is it
In the
you're
workshop,
lucky enough to have a
it's in the
workshop to
back
work
garden.
in?
It's in the back garden. I work outside. I
Okay.
do all my work outside in the cold and the rain. I have different overalls for different weather conditions. Uh, so yeah, I do duck in and out of the house and the workshop, and it's not that bad. It would be lovely to have a workshop. I dream of having a workshop and a wood burner on the go, and but no, I don't have that, so I go with what I've got. My garage and shed are full of tools, so no, it's not going in there. And being a van, of course, it's a big thing to accommodate. So yeah, I just jack it up outside.
Yeah,
Sand. It's all good.
I've just been at my workshop today. The person who's coming in on in it with me is building a very large camper van off an old Mercedes platform, a
Fantastic.
pre-Sprinter Mercedes van platform.
Nice.
So we were doing a lot of measuring up today to make sure it's actually going to fit through the door. Most importantly, not on the way in, but on the way out when he's built it.
Yeah, yeah, that could be a thing. Having to take the wheels off and drive it out on rims would be, yeah.
Or just take the garage down around it.
Goes down around in every building. Yeah, that's been done before. I'm sure. Yeah.
Now, my next question is a sore point, and it's one that your most recent video on your channel was about. You've done 3 videos about this now. Is
Yes.
the current range of challenges that anybody with a post 2001 conversion is currently having with the DVLA? Well, not anybody, it seems. Based on the freedom of information request I saw today, but lots of people who've converted a car built between 2001 and 2017 are having issues with the DVLA. Right. Let's go back, rewind to when you first converted it. Did you have any problems getting it re-registered as electric at the time?
No, before starting the project, I wanted to know what I was in for, so I actually contacted DVLA and said, "Look, this is if I do this, convert this van to electric, will I be able to register? Will I be able to drive it?" And the answer came back, yes. Not in writing, that was a phone call. So it took quite a long time to get through to somebody.
Right.
And then I did the deed and converted the vehicle, and I got to a point where it was definitely, electric, and it was nearly at the point of turning a wheel. So I thought, right, I better get this registered because I knew it wouldn't be quick. So I got me V5, filled it all out for change of fuel, and sent it off. And I got letters back sometime afterwards. It was quite a long process. The whole process was about 4 months, and a lot of letters back and forth, a lot of back and forth. We need pictures, we need this, we need that of it before and after. So I had some pictures of it before, so I sent the pictures with the engine in, and then sent a picture of it with the electric motor in. and various other things. They wanted to see the basic structure of the van, that it wasn't changed. So like down the sides of the van, which didn't make a lot of sense. But okay, fine. So I did all that they asked and sent all these pictures off, printed hard copies, not necessarily digital. And yeah, so I did all this paperwork back and forth, and eventually, after a lot of toing and froing, finally got the thing registered, and a happy day when the V5 came through the door and it said fuel type electric, emission zero. So that was a good day. I felt like I'd achieved something. It was a bit of a fun.
And then the bad day.
The bad day. The bad day was Friday. Work, things. It wasn't. Things weren't going too smoothly, and I opened this letter, brown envelope letter, and it was, oh yeah, we've changed the fuel type of your vehicle in error. Um, Please pay us hundreds of pounds. It's like, oh, cheers, thanks for that. Since then, I've actually had an email back saying, no, you don't have to pay the back tax because it was their error. So there's that.
That's
That's
good.
very good. That's very good. Um, but where that's all going, we don't know. But there's a lot of people making quite a lot of noise at the moment. So, bothering MPs, myself among them. So hopefully we're going to get somewhere with this and get our logbooks changed back to electric like they should be. It would be nice not to pay any tax after making it electric. Let's face it, none of us have had any grants from the government to do any of this, nor have we asked for them, I'm sure.
No.
It would just be good to get it sorted. But I have had one bit of correspondence today that's been hopefully if it all comes to bear. There was a problem with changing the fuel type on the logbook, meant that you couldn't then go and MOT the vehicle because the fuel type was wrong. So that's a huge one, because that basically means my van, anyone else's car, whatever, fine, you're driving it now, but as soon as it comes to MOT time, it'd be scrap. You'd have to throw it away, or what the hell do you do with it? Well, so I
stick a petrol engine back in
stick
it.
diesel in it. They're asking for it, and they well, that was an option that I did look at, which is tragic. That is not the way to do it. So
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, basically, I've lost myself. Basically,
so you can get it MOT'd.
You can get it MOT'd. What you've got to do is get the MOT station to change the fuel type at the point of booking in the vehicle. Now, obviously, you can't just go and demand that the MOT station does that. Another option might well be to take it to a ministry, or they're not ministry anymore, are they? VOSA. Take it to an actual main VOSA place where they do other vehicles and get them to MOT it, because there's no comeback on them, because they're the people who make the rules.
No.
So that might be another option for people, but it should be doable at your local MOT station.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that, because I got mine MOT'd before I changed my logbook.
Right.
Now mine's pre-2001, so rather simpler. But when I took it for its first MOT, the mechanic, hello Jimmy, if you're watching, I doubt you are. I can't imagine he does YouTube. I'm not sure he's does the internet yet. But I watched him, and he just changed the fuel type in the system to electric, and it just changed the set of tests he had to do. It was very, very straightforward, as long as you know what you're looking for. You can still get it MOT'd. At the moment your logbook may be wrong. You may still be paying tax on it, but at least you can get it MOT'd and drive it, which is a start.
It is a start,
but nonetheless frustrating.
It is. It was like one of those nightmare scenarios. You think this can't actually be happening, can it really? So, but here we are. It is, and it's happening for a lot of people.
What what about insurance? Has insurance been difficult at all?
Uh, More expensive, yes. There's one slight problem because it's a van and I'm using it for work every day and it's sign written and what have you. Um, you have to insure it properly. Well, you must insure it properly. So I did, and I've insured it through Adrian Flux as a commercial vehicle or as a vehicle being used for commercial, purposes. And it's about
Mm,
twice as much as it would be for uh, insuring a diesel vehicle. So that's the only real big
yeah,
expense.
same for me. Yeah, mine's the
Is
same.
it?
So it's because it basically doubled my insurance from what it would have been.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think that's really the end of the world, really. Um, no,
no,
I mean, even if you had the tax on it, it's still a load cheaper. Um, I think I worked on out that my old diesel's van was costing me about 26 pence a mile, something like that. And at the moment, well, electricity's going to go up. There's another thing to complain about, but at the moment, I think I'm charging at 5p a kilowatt. It does 2 miles to the kilowatt, so it's about 2.5 pence per mile. I don't think that's too bad.
okay,
That's a bit better. It's nicer
no,
to
no, not at
drive.
all.
You know?
Having just put 80 quid's worth of diesel in my wife's bus.
Yeah, that's not good, is
Yeah,
it?
it's yeah,
Like,
100 nearly £1.50 a litre. It's
yeah, I was putting when fuel was cheap back when I was putting 70, £80 easily a week in the van for work. Sometimes if you get busy, it's twice that. So with electric, the savings are really very good, especially when you're doing sort of 20,000 miles. It really pays for itself.
yeah, I'm not surprised. What's been the most rewarding aspect of the project?
I think just driving it every day. I mean, I really look forward to going to work. I still do, and it's been several years. I look forward to getting in the van and going somewhere, going to work. It's an absolute pleasure. Um, it's not say perfect, but it's pretty close to it. I've got a manual gearbox, and I don't have a clutch, so you have to time your gear changes. So you basically do it before you need it. Um, but no,
Yeah,
it's just great fun. Um, yeah, I think just getting it on the road. I think that first getting it MOT'd and doing my first journeys in it was that was pretty special, to be fair. I didn't come easy either. Some of the things I had problems with, and it was a bit painful. So to actually get it on the road and get it running, because after getting that inverter,
what were the big pain points? Were they around the
around the
electronics?
electronics, I bit off more than I could chew. Quite frankly, it wasn't. With the right help, it all would have worked, I'm sure. But yeah, but once I got the inverter and I literally wired it into the van within 2 weeks, and I was driving it. I was booking in for an MOT 2 weeks
Wow.
after the inverter turned up. Yeah, that was a much more doable proposition for me. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want to go there again in the future. I think what the guys are doing with Open Inverter is brilliant, and I mean, look what
Mm.
it's. I think a lot of the classic cars, all the Tesla units, I believe that they're using the sort of Dave McGuire's inverter boards in them. So that's pretty impressive.
Mm.
That's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Exceptional.
What's your favourite tool?
Favorite tool? Plasma cutter. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, because it's plasma, isn't it? It's like another state of matter. It's like, how cool do you want to be? You could use a laser, or you could use plasma, couldn't you? Really? I think plasma, yeah. Um, yeah, I've got a handheld plasma cutter, and I have I have built a CNC plasma cutter for it to go on. It's been some years
oh
that
wow.
worked. Yeah, I did about 20 years ago. I do like the projects. I did that about 20 odd years ago, and when I just had the house, and yeah, that was good. I used to cut metal signs and things with it, and I used to do bits of wrought iron stuff and things. I've used it as a CNC router since. It's got a table I put on top of the actual sort of water bed, and I've got a high-speed spindle in it. I can machine things with it. That's another one of my little side projects to resurrect that, to make parts for the new van. So I'd like to make all of my own adapter plates. I've always made my own adapter plates, but I want to make it on the CNC, and I'd like to make all of my adapter plates so I can share them online. So it can sort of open source um, through a repository like Thingiverse or something. You just go and download one and machine it yourself or get it machined. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah, I share that ambition. I think it's such a good ambition. I really, one of the greatest thrills for me the last few weeks has been seeing other people printing parts that I designed for the Prius inverter,
Fantastic.
just sort of connectors and stuff. And seeing people's photos of them like on Twitter that they're printing them something I designed.
Yeah,
It's just a huge
it
thrill.
is.
And so I'm planning to share the adapter. I've got my the bigger motor for my first car down here,
Right.
and I'm planning to share the adapter plate for that once it's done. I'm nearly there with it, with the design. I'm going to do a rough cut in steel, but then
Yes.
do a design that can be machined out of aluminium.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll share that as soon as it's available.
Well, yeah. I mean, it just pushes everything on, doesn't it? Rather than keeping it to yourself. And but the beauty of being able to, I bought a laser scanner some time ago, and I've not really used it a great deal. But when I have used it, I found it to be incredibly accurate if you get the lighting right. So I've scanned the bell housing for my current, well, the gearbox I hope to use on the four-wheel drive van, and I've just started CADing and drawing over the top of that, and it looks like it could work. So I want to get the router going so I can probably cut an MDF one to start with and just see if it all lines up and all the holes are right. And then after that,
I'm working on access to a 3D scanner. That's because I'd really like to be able to scan the whole engine bay and lay things out in there.
Yes. This one I bought was an iSense, and great bit of kit, but they stopped doing this one. It was about 400 quid, and they stopped doing it. And now their cheapest one is about 2,500. So I think they were selling their technology a bit cheap. Maybe they thought, and they've made the next one is obviously very professional, but the one I've got, I've scanned some very complicated shapes, replicated it with 3D printing, vacuum formed over the top of it, and then the vacuum formed part actually fits perfectly over the part that I originally scanned.
Oh, wow.
So the accuracy is pretty good over quite complicated shapes. Brilliant. So yeah, I think it's going to be good enough. So yeah.
Cool. So last question then. What's your timeline for the Caravelle? When you're expecting to have that one on the road? Because four-wheel drive's interesting.
But yeah, it's a bit ambitious. I'm hoping to work on it through this summer and get the four-wheel drive system in it by the end of, well, by Christmas. Budget-wise, batteries, I don't know. We'll just see what life throws at me. But yeah, I'm pretty keen to get it finished. I've also been buying inverters, solar inverters, for it, and the idea of using those is to give me mains power inside the van, so I won't have any gas or anything else cooking.
Cool.
Electric. I've bought the electric oven. Already bought that, and an induction hob. So yeah, I've got to get it done now because running out of excuses.
Sounds like a fantastic project. Well, listen, good luck with the DVLA. Hope that all gets resolved soon for you and for everybody. Thanks for coming on. Great pleasure chatting to you. I shall keep following the videos with interest. I'm interested to see how you get on with that four-wheel drive. And I think camper van, such a great project, especially if you've got that range. Although that does make the batteries a bit pricey.
It does. Yeah, I'll just have to swallow that one and get on with it. Yeah.